Welcome to the No Stand Zone podcast. My name is Tiae. A happy new year to you. Happy 2025. I don't know if technically I'm still allowed, or we're still allowed to say happy new year. 2 weeks? It's not up to 2 weeks in, so I think I'm safe. Yeah, so happy new year to you from wherever you're listening to me from. This is the No Stand Zone podcast. I'm your host, Tiae. If this is your first time, well, I'm welcoming you. This is the best time to join us. It's a new year, brand new year. So many new things are going to be happening on the podcast this year, and it's never the best time, I would say, to come in, but well, this is the new year and it's a good time. I'm so psyched about this. And if you haven't listened to all the other episodes yet, you need to catch up to know what this is about, what we do here, so that you're not left behind on the fun stuff that we talk about on the podcast. You're not left out on some of the background, on context to some of the things I talk about as well on the pod. So thank you very much for being here. For you OG old timers, thank you very much also for tuning in. It's a pleasure to have you here again. It feels good to know that even after all the time we've taken apart, or the time of taking off, you're still coming back and downloading and listening. As always, I want to know what you think about any of the episodes that we drop here. You can follow on Twitter is at NoStandPod, or send a Gmail, an email, whichever, an email. Yes, NoStandPod@gmail.com, NoStandPod@gmail.com. But yeah, welcome back. It's a new year. Pew pew pew. Pew pew and fireworks and everything. I hope you had an awesome holiday season with the Christmas and the New Year and all of that fun stuff. I hope you really had a good time. I could not wait to be back. I know the time off was longer than every other person or podcast or whatever out there, but I'm glad that we're back. I needed to be back and refreshed because this year we're going harder than we ever did. This time last year, the podcast hadn't even started yet. It was still a thought in my mind, and it's amazing. So many great things we achieved last year with over 40. I think we had about 40 episodes last year. Is it 39 or 40 episodes last year? With the first one being February 5th. Which is in a few weeks. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to be feeling when that happens, when we get to that point. But I'm hoping that this year we can do a lot more. And what do I mean by a lot more? I'm hoping to talk to more people this year. To have that, those are the bonus episodes, so more bonus episodes. And the people I'm talking about, these are the people that make Afrobeats what it is, home and abroad, people who are trying to make it happen. So last year, if you remember, I spoke with the very first guest I had was his name, Adiayo, and he, one of the founders of the turntable charts, the only certified chart metric that is recognized in Nigeria. He's also a music journalist for Pulse Nigeria, and he was the first one I had here. I mean, we had so much fun discussing some of these things, so in-depth analysis, and some of these conversations that we had to split it into. It was like almost 2 hours. Right, I think it was like almost 2 hours that we had that conversation. We also had a conversation with Shay Lasisi, movie critic, incredible individual. At least we had him twice. In fact, we had him twice come back. So, and I've seen from the feedback that you guys really enjoyed those conversations that we have. We're talking about just outside of just the music, but people who make things happen on the background. Like with Shay Lasisi, we talked about movies as well, and the impact of Netflix living Nigeria and all those fun stuff. We also had a movie review as well. We had a movie review. It was really fun. So we're going to look to do more of those movie reviews, or talk and also talk with the people who are sort of what would I call them, movers and shakers of Afrobeats, people who are on the background trying to make it happen. I have a few people in mind that I'm going to reach out to in a couple of weeks, and hopefully they accept our invitation. And when they get here, as you know, the conversations we have here have been had no other place is having the conversations that we are having here, because they're all well thought of about and well thought about, and they're really, really in depth. The questions we're asking here and the answers that are being given, you're not getting that information anywhere else. So I would say you're in for a treat this year. We're going harder. Hopefully we're able to get to 50 we're able to get to 50 plus episodes this year, to make it to make it 100. Hopefully we're gonna see how that happens, but it's a long year. I'm just gonna be I'm just gonna go with the flow, is what I would say, because I was sitting and thinking about it, of what is the year gonna look like for the podcast and what are we gonna do. But I figured that thinking about it just gave me so much anxiety, and I have, that's not the kind of vibe I want to have coming in, right? Let's just go with the flow, with the way we've always done it. If I have new ideas, I just implement it and just move on. The major thing is we're able to get the podcast moving, and you guys are able to get the content every week, and you guys are satisfied, and you're also giving your feedbacks to whatever it is we're doing here, how we can be better. So I'm putting that on you as well. If you have any ways of that we can be better, please do not hesitate to reach out to me personally. It's Tiae Sound on Twitter. Is Tiae Sound on Twitter, as well as No Stand Pod on Twitter, as well. That's X. I keep calling it Twitter. So those, my DMs are open on those two social media platforms this year. Hopefully, I don't want to do more than I don't want to eat more than I can chew. So hopefully we'll have maybe one more of the social media platforms, maybe Instagram or TikTok or something. We'll see how it goes, but I'm not stressing about it. We're just going to see how it goes, and then we go from there. Most important thing is we're covering the music, Nigerian music industry, the African music industry, just entertainment around the continent, generally. And you guys are, we're able to vibe on, and have conversations around some of the things that will be happening this year. So before I get into sort of what I want to talk about, I want to take a step back first. Okay. I have for this first episode of the year, we're not going to do any. I'm not. We'll see what the time looks like, but it probably wouldn't take any music reviews. That will be next week. I have so much that I've been keeping in. I want to share with you guys music that I have been listening to, and so we'll talk about that. We'll see what time looks like at the end of towards the end of the show. We'll see if we can dive into that. But I just want to take a step back and look at the Detty December. That if and it's amazing that the Detty December in Nigeria, for you who are listening and you don't know what that is basically, and that has been going on for a long time. And that reminds me, the first time I remember, and this thing, it wasn't always like this. For people to realize this Detty December, I remember when all of this started, sort of in like the early 2000s, where it was more of that's before it got this name of Detty December, and people coming from different countries. It was just because of the way more people celebrate in Nigeria, end of the year. They're usually just generally a lot of parties and things like that. And I'm not talking about parties as in just like ladies and all of that. It was just, most of it was just your community, just around that. It could just be an open field, literally an open field. I remember the first one I was really, really part of. And for you who know Lagos very well, you know where I'm talking about. I was I won't say a lot younger then, but I would say I was was I in college at that time? But those early 2000s, 2010s-ish, when it was like really, really becoming a thing. I remember then most of all of this was just an open field in Isolo. There is this like estate in Isolo, and I still think it's still there till today. There's this giant estate opposite SOS. I think Save Our Lives. I think that's what that is. An orphanage. I think it is. There's this large estate there, like tall buildings, residential area, and right in the middle of it, there's this open field. And there will just be a DJ somewhere. And this was organized by like the really older people in the community, right? That was how all of this started. And they just blast music all night. Nobody was in charge of the, like, maybe selling drinks or anything. It was just, you know what, if you hear the music, if you're around, just show up. And I remember that I was there with my cousins, and with my, my extended family, really large. So we're a there were a lot of us, and when we got there, it's just an open giant field where people play soccer during the day, and they're just blasting the music. Wherever you are, you can just vibe to it. And I want to believe that that's how, like, sort of how all of this started, where it was just like a community thing. And it's amazing to see what Detty December has become, where it has become a thing, where people are coming from outside Nigeria. I mean, Nigerians now, people are kind of like coming home. There's money to spend. There are, parties to go, more organized parties to go to, more organized events, artists and all of that. And eventually it became that, right, where it was more local artists, right? You want to see the artist that down the street. That guy with it on the talk saying, I be artist. That night, you see him on the stage performing. Basically, that was what it was. Nobody is looking for to invite some, big artists who can afford that, right? So it's interesting to see that as eventually became where a thing where they organize like more organized events, and they invite big artists, right? And those, you just come from wherever you are. If you're able to get in, you get in. If you're able to pay, you pay, and then you can enjoy the company of this artist or their performances. Now it's become a massive thing. And so when I was just watching everything happen, it just brought me so much joy, and kind of took my mind back to those events that I was part of, both the one at Isolo and the one at different places that I've lived in Lagos, right? And it was just kind of amazing to see what it's become, right? And for me, seeing that it is possible that our artists can perform, like we're able to put it together. For me, that is a big thing. One of my biggest fears has always been that with the way things are getting in Nigeria, it might become harder and harder every day to accomplish those events, right? That there will be people, right? The artists will be available, but maybe because of security issues, because of maybe harassment and just general security issues in Nigeria, or maybe because people are not able to afford these shows for whatever reason, or we don't just have the technical know-how to put these things together on a big, in a big stage or a big format, that we might not be able to do it. And I want to say this is probably the biggest Detty December. I'm looking at it, I'm like, this has to be the biggest one. And around the world, this was trending on social media. Artists from different parts of the world were there. I mean, I'm not saying something that you guys don't know, but I'm just trying to just put an emphasis on it, just for us to take a step back, just breathe in and see that this is incredible. What happened this past December, for me, I just don't, it was really, really good to see that. I think it just happened, and there was no documentation of the whole thing. There's no way for us to take a look back and be like, what we just witnessed or what we were just part of is something really extraordinary, right? Where Nigeria sort of was like the center of the world when it comes to entertainment for like almost the whole month, for like 2-3 weeks, where celebrities from around the world were showing up, artists from around the world were showing up as well, from different genres, from R&B to rap as well. And for me, outside of just the music itself, for other people in the world to see that it's possible for you to actually show up and you survive, right? That it's not just, the bad news out there about things that happen in the country, but for people to see that you can actually come, enjoy yourself. That gave me so much joy and pride. I saw a video of Chloe Bailey talking about her time in Nigeria and her moving with Burna Boy. They were asking her in that interview about what the whole process was like. And it was so good to hear her say she had a good time. I mean, I felt so proud. I was like, whoever was in charge, this, I want to put it to the feet of so many incredible people who would never be in the spotlight. I just want to give a big shout out to these people. I want to give a big shout out to these people. Everyone who was involved in making this Detty December as incredible as it was, which honestly, my opinion, I think this is the biggest one we've had in a long time. I'm talking about the way it was on the ground and the way it was on social media and the way it made us look on the world stage. This was a big deal. And I just don't want us to gloss over it and just let it pass by without taking a step back and thinking about everything and just taking it all in. For everyone who was involved on the background, for the logistics, making sure that all the celebrities that came from outside Nigeria, all the people that came from different parts of the world, and even the people that were in Nigeria, everyone, was safe, that the events went well, everyone who was in charge in putting the sound together, everyone in charge of, driving the instruments and all the parts that were used for the musical concerts, the drivers, the cleaners, the engineers. I want to give a shout out to every one of you. You guys made Nigeria proud this period. I think that should not be overlooked, because this was an incredible feat. If you just look on social media, you just see these beautiful pictures, beautiful videos, but a lot of work, a lot of people, a lot of work and a lot of manpower, a lot of money as well went into putting all of this together, right? Shout out to everyone who did their job at the hotels to make sure everyone was taken care of, man. I mean, I know there's a lot of focus on, things that went wrong as well, and I'm glad people were safe. There was one or two mishaps here and there, but I'm so glad that people were safe and this was able to happen. So, I mean, there's been a lot of shout out to the artists and all of that, but I want to just give a big shout out to everyone who wasn't in the spotlight, who made this Detty December happen. For me, I was proud, man. I was really, really proud. Nigeria was the center of the world for about 2-3 weeks. And all you guys made it happen, man. So all the DJs, both the ones that flopped that I heard on social media as well, shout out to you guys. Even the people who are part of this but went on social media, but for the love of the music and the love of the people, still threw parties like the one that I was part of, years ago in Isolo. I mean, shout out to all of you, man. It was just so good. To see that it's possible, even with how difficult, extremely difficult, the standard of living is in Nigeria. And for me, I don't know why I feel like that. I mean, I still have family in the country, and I know how difficult things are. Both people that are real, like family to friends to extended family as well. And I'm not just talking about everyone who's like poor or something like that. I mean, even people that are well-to-do, like the saying goes that Nigeria can happen to anybody, right? Nigeria can happen to anybody. That's how crazy things are, or crazy things can get in the. How crazy things can get in the country. So I'm just so happy that went peaceful. Everybody got back home safely, irrespective of whatever wild stories they had, right? I think it was just also good PR just for Nigeria. And even with how difficult things are in the country, and this Detty December being as good as it was, it had me thinking, if we can just get things right, Nigeria could be where the whole world goes to gather for like the festival at the end of the year. Not just like Afrobeats festival, just like an African festival, like where the whole world comes for music, food, all these jollof rice wars that they are doing in the US. All of that goes to bed because you're on the continent itself. Nobody gives a damn about the competition. It's just about enjoying the food. I mean, I served in the south part of Nigeria, in Akwa Ibom State. And I can tell you that the range of the food they have there, most Nigerians have not even begun to taste it. Most, abroad people have not begun to even fathom how incredible it is. I know people are talking about fufu and jollof. Man, you need to taste afang. You need to taste what's that? Oh my goodness. All these names, the names of this soup just skip my. You need to taste white soup. My goodness, you need to taste the one with the periwinkle and all of that. And that's me as a Yoruba boy being there for just a year. That's just my experience. That's just the one I know. But imagine like a Nigerian festival where all the different types of food are just available to everyone, and the world comes to gather in Nigeria. I mean, it's just I was just spending my time looking at all those pictures, just thinking, and my mind just smiling just by myself and smiling while thinking of what the possibilities of us getting things right, just the economy of things, right, being right, and what the possibility could be. I mean, I was just thinking about that, and it just brought me so much joy, thinking of what we could achieve, basically. So I was just really, really glad, man. Shout out to everyone, everyone who made this Detty December a success. Whether you are known on social media or not, you are a Nigerian hero. You are a hero. I want to just let you know, everyone who made this happen, to the people at the airport, which we hear the different stories, man. You guys at the airport, customs, man. The stories we've heard, man, it's heart wrenching. But nevertheless, you landed the planes. You made sure they took off. People got their bags. At least they got out of the country safe. They came in safe as well. So I can't speak enough, honestly, about that. I just felt so proud, and I just want to give a shout out to everyone, wherever they are, who kind of who made this Detty December rally. I just needed to take a step back. I was seeing so many so many pictures that just kind of made my heart melt. Seeing the success and all of that. So let's dive into what the crux of what I've got for you guys today. And this is probably what this first episode will gonna be like. So I have been thinking basically about what the new year would look like. 2025. I've been thinking about it, and what are the things we should be paying attention to, just in-depth analysis on these things. And I got thinking that I think looking at it as, new year, what do we need to do as a music industry? Looking at the year alone, it's a very narrow way of looking at this. So I will share in detail with you in just a bit. So I'm looking at this decade, 2025 to 2035. I'm looking at this decade as a defining decade. Now, a lot of things are going to be happening this decade that have never happened in a very long time. In fact, a lot of people are going to be coming into this decade. A lot of the active music people are going to be experiencing a lot of changes in this decade. The Nigerian music industry, the landscape, a lot is going to change. Now, this change is not based on whether somebody does something or doesn't do. I'm going to be talking about that as well. I'm not going to be talking about the things that, whether we like it or not, some things are going to change this decade. And it behooves all of us to look at it that way. I think this is not just any kind of year. This year is a beginning of so many things that I think will reshape what this industry will be like, from the labels to the artists to the ones to the promoters, people in charge of promotions and all of that, to the listeners as well. There is going to be a massive change in all of these sectors, even the movie in the industry, because we've spoken about that with Shay last a few times. There's also going to be a change in that industry. Now, before I go into detail, let me just give you an idea of how I kind of got to this. And most of it for me is this 2024 was so, was saying so much that if you were not paying attention, you were going to miss a lot. Now, if one thing we've noticed in the past 2-3 years, it's that a lot of people are not able to tour like they used to. Now, let me take one step back a little. I'm going to be mentioning some things that have happened in other music industries, like in America and other parts of the world. And I'm saying this because now we've become so intertwined, sort of, that whatever is happening in other countries, musically, like entertainment, affects us as well, because we're either connected by the same maybe record labels. We are using the same tools like social media and all of that. So, and we're basically intertwined at this point, one way or another. So if there are changes happening in other music and other industries, we're going to be affected as well, and we're going to need to start making that change, right? And that takes me to some of the things that have happened that sort of made me take a step back and think about this. So one of them is, this 2-3 years now, a lot of artists have had to kind of scale down on the amount their shows. Some people are not able to sell shows, and I'm talking about even like household names in different genres that are not able to they're unable to sell shows like the way they thought they would or they've done in the past. At the same time, we have artists like Taylor Swift, who made over $1 billion from her tour this past year, just alone. We've had folks like Nicki Minaj as well, who did what nobody could imagine. That wait, she still has fans who are able to stand up for her across the world. Chris Brown is also one of them people who are still able to pull off those kind of giant, massive shows, right? So for me in that area, it's going to be interesting what the next decade is going to look like. If even household names are beginning to scale back, and only just like 1% of artists around the world are still able to make money from these shows, that is going to be interesting what the next decade is going to look like. We're just coming from a pandemic, right? And that is also going to affect our own artists as well, right? What is touring going to look like? A lot of for artists like Burna Boy, who tour all the time and all of that, talking about our own artists who tours all the time, is going to be interesting to see what his touring would look like this next decade or so, right? He's going to have to prove himself at this point. He's released so many great projects in the past. It's going to be interesting to see what that looks like touring wise, is what I'm talking about. As well as we're seeing changing of guards in, for example, the biggest one this past year was rap. Drake being at the top of the game for so long, and then it looked like culturally he kind of lost a lot of currency, right? Like cultural currency, because he still ended up one of the biggest artists in the year, like streams and all of that. But culturally, it looks like he just took a step, like he really got hurt, like culturally. Right. So what does that look like this next coming decade? And then he's suing, record labels. He's suing DSPs as well. Whatever the outcome of that is, because I think that case is very delicate. Whatever the outcome of that case is, it's gonna affect a lot of how these record labels and DSPs interact with artists moving forward. I don't think most people are paying attention to that. So that's one side. And there's this one that is really, really important. I've been thinking about this even before the most current developments. TikTok is literally the biggest social media platform in the world today. It has broken a lot of artists in the past decade. It's made them a lot of money. This past decade, Love One Tinty. We wouldn't be talking about that song without I'm talking about CK. We were talking about that song without TikTok. That song broke via TikTok. This last decade. We're talking about really made artists a lot of money. Keys Daniel as well with Booga and all of that. Currently, artists like Sabrina Carpenter in the US are also breaking from that as well. So many artists have really come out via TikTok this past decade or so, but something is happening. Probably one of the biggest markets in the world for TikTok, if not the first or second, America, the US. TikTok might be banned in the US. Like, we're gonna know the updates of that in the coming days on the development on that. And from what we're hearing this weekend, the Supreme Court, where the case is right now, from the reports I was reading even before starting the podcast, reports are saying the Supreme Court is most likely to upheld this ban. like to uphold the ban. So if TikTok is banned in the US, if people are not, if people for a second think that that does not cause a tsunami of events around the world, then people are not paying attention. People are not paying attention. So wherever you are around the world, you need to be thinking about what would it look like for your artists if TikTok is banned in the US, because a lot of people make money that in, like a lot of our Afrobeat artists, that is where a lot of them are looking to make money today. A lot of them are doing shows in the US, especially folks like Burner, folks like Iris Star. A lot of people's music is consumed. Like 100, like I think the number is like 100 million or something like that users in the US. That is going to affect the music industry. Whoever is not paying attention to that and trying to figure out what would that look like the next decade. Now, if it doesn't get banned, but it gets sold to an American, because that is the alternative. That if it's not, if it's not going to be banned, then it has to be sold. But we know that when social media changes hand like that, a new owner might come with new ideas for algorithm, for all of that. The TikTok is not going to be the same it is now. So that is not a 2025 thing. You need to be looking at what the next 5 years, what the next 10 years is going to look like for your artist when we're talking about music promotion. So, I mean, all of that coming together is what I'm talking about. I am looking at what the next decade is going to look like. And I think that's what everyone should be looking at. I think this is a really, really defining decade. And now, bringing it home for Afrobeats. Let's start with the artist. The three biggest artists in Nigeria right now. We all know them. We don't need to go back and forth. And I'm focusing on this three. And I know some of you will tell me, oh, there's more than three big artists today. But I want to focus on these three, and I'll tell you why in a bit. But just flow with me, okay? Because what I want to say is particular, not, let me say four artists, and I will tell you why. I want to focus on four artists real quick. Wizkid, Burna, Davido, and Tiwa Savage. I want to focus on these three for a bit. And why this decade is a very important one, especially for these four. Now, Wizkid, real quick. So you guys will, let me give you a quick hint so you kind of have an idea of where I'm going with this. Wizkid is 34. Burna Boy is 33. Davido is 32. Tiwa Savage is 44. This decade, these four artists are not going to be musically relevant at the end of this decade, is what I'm saying. Now, a couple of you will tell me, oh, whatever it is you have to say, whatever. Oh, Tiwa Savage is 44. These artists at the end of the decade are going to be the same age and all of that. Well, I can guarantee you that out of these three, especially Wizkid, Burna, and Davido, out of these three, not the whole, three of them are not going to be musically relevant at the age of 44, 40, 45, 44, and 42. And 42, right? Not all of them are going to be relevant at that age. In fact, let me put it to you. If these three artists are still relevant at the end of this decade, it's an indictment on the industry. Let me just put that to the side for a bit. In fact, this decade is going to be the first time, because I have already said it to you, that these artists are not going to be the top dogs at the end of this decade, right? And this is going to be the first time in a really long time, maybe in about 15 years, that these guys are not going to be the most talked about artists, or they're not going to be the front runners of this genre. It's going to be the first time that we're neither talking about Davido as the front runner, or Burna as the front runner, or Wizkid as the front runner. This is going to be the first time that is happening for a lot of people. This is going to be a real mind fuck for a lot of fans who are listening to the music today. Now, a lot of people grew up with Wizkid being the biggest artist they know. A lot of people grew up in a world. Most people do not know what it feels like to live in a world without Wizkid, Burna, and Davido. Most people don't know consciously do not know what that world looks like today. Because at that age, when these guys were starting, let's say real quick that you are the average age of people who are paying attention to music today, right, is most people are like 24. Let me put it at that age. So you were born in 2000. Now, at the time when Wizkid came into the industry, or that's 2008 or so, when these guys came into the industry, guess what? You were just 8 years old. Maximum, you were just 10 years old. You were not actively involved in music conversations, or did not even know that most people did not consciously involved in music at that point. It is whatever you are able to hear. You were not going out to decide which artist you like or which song. Most people between age and 10 at the time. In fact, some people are even younger. So if you were 20 today, you probably don't know what the world looks like without Burna, Wizkid, and Davido involved in your life. In fact, I would add, oh my goodness, with all due respect, let me add MI to the conversation, because MI too has been here a really long time, right? So we're looking at folks who, like Wizkid and the rest, who came in 2008, 2009, 2010 with MI as well. Let me add MI to the MI is in his 40s already at this point, right? So I think this decade is going to produce a whole new set of fans who are going to grow up without these big guys, MI, Wizkid, Davido, Burna, Tiae Savage being the biggest artist or the most talked about artist on the block. For me, that is a big deal. Now, I said earlier that these artists are not going to be musically relevant. And if they are, I said it's an indictment on the industry, because there is no reason why the biggest artists in an industry which thrives from on the creativity and brilliance of young people to be headed by folks in their 40s. How many artists today are in their 40s and at the top of conversations? It's not about their age or anything per se. It's just the way the music business is. The music business is for the young. It's not like the artist side. It's for the young people. Most people come into the industry 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, that age. You stay there for as long. But nobody is balling at the top of the industry in their 40s. If that is the case, because that for me, it would be mind blowing if that the case. Like the way we are talking about the three of them today, if we're still talking about the three of them like that and a few people, trailing behind them, that is a big indictment in the industry. You're telling me that in the past 10 years, you've not been able to produce artists who can, and a good number of artists who can take over the mantle from these people. Like you can talk about them, but they're not the ones in conversations today. It's like still having conversations that, talking about rap, for example. And we are still saying, Jay-Z is whatever. Like people recognize Jay-Z today, but the people who are going back and forth on the rap today are young related to these guys, like 10, 15 years behind folks like Jay-Z, right? Who are closer to 50 now or something, right? So I'm looking at it like, if at the end of this decade, we're still looking up to these guys to hold the mantle, then the industry would have really failed a lot. You tell me you've not been able to produce other artists who can be what the people we're talking about, with this artist being recognized for their contributions to the industry. And it's going to be mind blowing, right? Because let's say 2035, we're going to be looking at guys who have been in the industry for 20 years? it's gonna be an incredible decade for, especially for the artists. Another thing that I'm looking at the end of this decade is 80% of this industry, the music artists we see today, are also going to be relevant. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at all of them through the lens of, can I trust you with do you have a decade under your belt? Do you have 5 years even on it? In fact, do you have 2 albums to give to me? A lot of the artists that we see that are, some of them being celebrated today, don't have 5 years under their belt. I mean, I don't want to diminish anybody because I respect some of these artists, a lot of our artists, but some of the artists that we're talking about in 2014, a lot of them we're not talking about today. And it's not because anything is wrong with these artists per se. It's just the business, music business, it is what it is, right? Sometimes people phase out. Sometimes people are able to last, and not everybody stays to the end. But I'm looking at it that this decade is the beginning of so much. Especially, we're going to be seeing a new generation of artists. Now, I'm going to touch on that too later on, so stay tuned for that. Talking about the new generation of artists, there's something else that I want to point out that we'll focus on once I talk about this defining decade, and we run through the whole thing. So for the artist, that's what I'm saying. A lot of the people we see today are not, we're 80% or even 90%, because the music industry has even changed. It's like the turnover of throwing people off is even faster today, and not everybody's going to be able to deliver on that, giving album after album after album and staying relevant in conversation, not just you delivering albums, but staying relevant in conversations. It's going to be interesting to see who, what this decade gives us, who falls off the road, and who are the biggest stars at the end of this, right? And let me even talk about this new generation of artists. Let me talk about it now, because I'm thinking about it and it kind of relates. I think this is the decade of the independent. This is the decade of the independent artist as well. Still focusing on the artist. I think in this Nigerian music industry, we have never had the amount of independent artists that we have now who are in the mainstream. We've never had this this number of independent artists. I mean, a few artists this last year, the ending of the year, beginning of this year as well, left their record labels. Right? And these are artists who are very, very relevant in conversations today. I mean, these are artists who are grounded. You cannot remove them from music conversations. Extremely talented. A lot of artists are independent, are thinking about going independent. And I don't think we've had this amount of, artists going in, like being independent before. I mean, we've had big artists we've always had one. Big artists, right? Or mainstream artists who are relevant, but we didn't have them as independent artists. I mean, correct me, but I think the last thing I saw around the Asake conversation now is that he's actually independent now. We're talking about one of the biggest artists on the continent, and he's independent, doing stuff on his own. We've never had that before. The Davidos and the Wizkids, when they were at certain points in their career, even before they got here, they were never independent. They were always under some sort of record labels and all of that. At the peak of their careers, they were always involved at some point. Not this. I'm not talking about upcoming or new artists. Like imagine at the top of Davido's when he was doing Eve at that point. I mean, last year released 2 years ago, I would say, he released probably the biggest album. I think is the best album or the biggest album he's ever released. He wasn't independent at the point. It's still collaboration with Sony. It's still under. So I'm looking at it either way. I might have my facts wrong on some of this maybe on Davido there, because I'm thinking about it. But either way, I'm looking at it that a lot of artists as well are gonna get out of whatever deals they have, and we want to try this independence. We want to see what it looks like if they're going on this journey on their own. Now, I don't know whether this will be the right move for any of these artists, especially if, it's expensive today, especially for the artists who are already really established, like Asake. It's going to be interesting to see how is it going to be able to pull this off. So I'm looking at this next 10 years. It's going to be interesting if these independent artists are able to pull it off. Oh my, the industry, there's going to be a change. There's going to be a shift in the conversations, how we look at artists, how artists look at themselves, the leverage that they think they have. It's going to be interesting to see how that is going to be possible. Now, I mean, it's tough. Anyone who knows how the music industry works, not just in Nigeria, it's tough going on this journey alone, especially if you've had giants work with you for a reasonable part of your career. Let me go into another one. Let's talk about the stands for a little bit. This decade also is going to produce a new set of fans. I think they're the Gen Alpha. They're going to be coming in well into they're going to be majority of the people involved in music conversations. Now, all the people, like I mentioned, in their 20s now, at the end of this decade, they're going to be in their 30s. They're going to be like me. And some of the conversations I'm having with people today, I beg, what do you have to say? That kind of thing. Well, we're gonna have this next decade is gonna produce a new generation of fans. Now, what these fans are gonna pick up from the current generation is gonna be interesting. Now, a lot of these fans are 13 at this point. A lot of them are 10. A lot of them are 8 at this point. They probably do not have a full grasp of what the music industry really is. They might know the songs and all of that, but they don't have much say as to, tickets, buying, streaming of music and all of that, like the current generation, the current iteration of fans do. In fact, the coming fans right now, this new generation of fans that are coming right now are going to be the first generation of Nigerian music listeners who are going to grow up with the DSP as part of their daily lives. They are not going to know a world without DSPs. I'm talking about the Apple Music and Spotify and the likes. This generation of Nigerian listeners are going to be the first generation to grow up with not knowing a world without the DSPs. So all those people that are 13 right now are growing up in a world where if you want to listen to music, you didn't have to download it from somewhere. You're probably listening to it on those, on those platforms. So it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the music moving forward. I mean, there's Audio Mac as well. So we're having the first generation of music listeners who are going to be growing up with DSPs as part of their daily lives. That is, I realize what I'm saying, but I think I need to speak with someone about this. This is going to be interesting. I'm hoping that someone else is thinking about this. That's true. I need to speak to somebody about this. Someone who understands like psychology and all of that, to tell us what the impact of this is going to be on the industry. Because these people, it's not like they can go to not just OK.com and download music. No. They're going to grow up in a world where if you want to listen to music, you need to download a DSP on your phone, Audio Mac, or any of those. People, that is big. That is major. So I'm looking at that as well, that how is that going to impact how they look at music, how they look at the artists, who they regard as the best, or who they regard as legends, or who they feel is worthy of their adoration, basically. And I think let me just give an example. Imagine, because this will grow up with DSPs, right? Imagine because P Square or Two Face doesn't have as much streams as CK, all of a sudden imagine if there are tons of people who believe CK is greater than Two Face or P Square. And with all due respect to CK, it's nowhere close to this man, right? So I'm looking at that. Or do these people come in with their knowing, or with the knowledge that, well, there was a world before DSP that I wasn't part of, that I know not of. Let me find who are these people, and have we told enough stories? Have we documented enough of this time that they know not of, that they can fall back to and be like, oh, you guys have written and put out information about this. I know of the time. I know of this time and this artist because of this. In fact, I would say the documentary about Afrobeats that documentary is gonna be more important this decade we're going into. Whoever is not paying attention, I know a lot of people did not really watch it and had so many things to say about it and all of that, right? But if they're working on the part, I heard a few years ago they were working on the second part. Yeah, they better be working on the second part, because a whole new generation is coming into the industry that needs to know the information that is going to be on this documentary. Another thing is, we're going to find out if this new generation of listeners are going to be stands as well. What will be their level of standship? Are they going to be engrossed as well in the conversations about stands? Are they going to be vicious as well? Because they're going to be growing up in the middle of social media. Like, there is no restriction here. A lot of these people probably have phones already at this point. A number of them probably do. So it's going to be interesting to see how they interact with their favorite artist, how they interact with each other. It's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. Man, I am just, my mind is just racing right now, trying to figure out so many things, just thinking about these fans and what the DSPs and social media that they're grown up with, how that is going to impact the way they see music, they interact with music, right? So, I mean, and the thing is, out of these new fans, out of this new generation, we're going to have new artists as well. Now, this is also going to be, maybe the generation coming, well, there might not be the new generation of artists coming in with DSP, but now they're coming in with a whole lot of, like, there's more knowledge about how to navigate contracts and all of this, right? There's a lot more. We know a lot more now. I think artists are a lot smarter now about going into contracts. We don't hear of those terrible contracts we used to hear of maybe a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades ago, right? So those new artists coming in, it's going to be interesting with what sounds they also come in with as well. Gen Alpha. It's going to be interesting to see what sounds are they able to play around with to keep the Afrobeats alive, to keep the sound alive. Whew, man. So we're already running out of time, but you guys see where I'm going. There's so much. I mean, there's also the record label side I think we should be paying attention to as well. Now, I mentioned that this is the decade of the independent. Now, what happens when a lot of artists are going independent? What are the record labels going to do about this? And I'm not talking about international record labels now. I'm talking about homegrown record labels. Are these record labels able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Duplicate the successes they've had with some of the artists who they've been working with who have left? Are they able to bring out new artists as well? Are they able to produce new artists? YBNL is going to be interesting to see how they're able to do that. They've had history of producing some of the best and people who go down in Afrobeats Hall of Fame. They've produced some of the best. Shout out to Olamide himself. I mean, Don Jazzy also is there with Maven Records. There's Chocolate City, produced some of the best artists as well, from the hip hop and rap genre. So it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. If artists are going independent, then record labels are going to be, there's going to be a demand for them to do something new, bring in new blood, bring in new artists. Does all these artists going independent, does that affect the way they look at their contracts now? Does that affect how they look at the artists before they sign them and things like that? Does that make them cringe a little bit, knowing that some of these artists might want to go away immediately they get some major successes? Like, these record labels are going to have to figure this out. It's also a business. Now, bringing in the international record labels, and a lot of our artists are also signed to international record labels. Now, with the old guards leaving, I mean, with the facts like Burna, Tiae, Wizkid, Davido leaving, and all these guys are in collaboration with international record labels. These labels will want to interact with the big fishes or fish that exist in the industry. Now, are they able to find and work with those artists? Are they able to find big artists to work with? Because I'm sure that's what they're looking for. If Atlantic, who has been working with Burna, they're probably going to be looking up, okay, who's the next artist we can get? So are these record labels going to be battling with each other to snatch up the next big artist in Nigeria or on the continent? What does that look like? Do they totally take their hands off? Because I can, from what I'm saying, it's my own opinion, I think they're actually taking their hands off. That's what I'm feeling, because some of our artists are signed to these record labels, but we're not seeing the effect of of their signage to these record labels, right? I'm not really seeing things that I feel like I should be seeing more support from these record labels, right? I'm not really seeing that. So, I mean, will they prove me wrong to say, well, we are still invested in this, right? Or are they going to just back out and be like, okay, it's none of our business anymore. We're not really seeing the return that we want. That's going to be interesting, interesting to see. And let me just speak on a final aspect. But I'm sure you guys see what I'm talking about. You cannot look at any of this by just talking about 2025 alone. This decade is a very delicate one. 2025 to 3035. This industry is not going to be the same. I can guarantee you that 100%. This industry is not going to be the same. Afrobeats is not going to be the same. A lot of things are going to change. If you are music creative, if you are an entertainment person, whatever, you cannot just be looking at 2025. You have to be looking at least 5 years from now. And if you're going to be looking at it better, you need to be looking at 10 years from now. The last aspect that I'm looking at that I'm looking at right now, and I'm kind of picturing a decade from now, is our awards in Nigeria, or awards around Nigerian music industry. Now, Grammys gave a category to Afrobeats. If you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you know I have spoken about the fact that the Grammy has served its purpose, and it's probably time for them to. They're irrelevant to me. To even honestly, if we're going to be honest to ourselves, they're not as relevant as they used to be to even the regular Nigerian music consumer. Right? I mean, it still has got it, but personally, to me, it doesn't make any difference anymore at this point. For me, it served its purpose. It makes no difference wherever you give it to. I mean, some of the biggest artists we've had have not won Grammys yet, and they're doing exploits without the Grammys. So the Grammys has always been a thing to kind of shine the light on these artists, right? That was the whole goal of why we wanted the Grammys in the first place, so that people can see our music, see our artists. But a lot of our artists are doing incredible work without the Grammys. Buju is able to go on tour around the world without it, and probably will never be nominated for it, not because of him, but because of how the Grammys is set up. That's what I've said. If you've listened to this pod enough, I've said the Grammys is not to help us. It's not to help our artists. It's not to help the industry at this point. It served its purpose already. right? Because it's always gonna be about who is the biggest Afrobeat artist in America. It's always gonna be that. And that cannot be how we look at our industry. It cannot be by who America certifies is the biggest, whose records America certifies is doing the best. No, we always have to be the one to determine that. And I think that's what these categories that they've given us is going to be. They determining all of that. And it's going to be interesting to see who they nominate. Because the thing is, if they have invested in Afrobeats, they as well need to prop up the industry as well. They need to focus and prop up the industry. Now, are they still going to give the best Afrobeats award on stage? Or we're going to be receiving our awards on the backstage? We're going to wait to see. I'm sure some of you are saying, well, worse things have happened. Because if none of these artists that I've mentioned to you, if it's not Burna, if it's not Wiz, if it's not David, if it's not Tiwa Savage, let's imagine a particular year without Rema or Ira Star releasing an album. Who are you propping up as your as the face of Afrobeats in the US? Who are you going to prop up? Are you going to want to give that award on your stage knowing that most of the audience is American? They probably don't even know who you're giving the award to. The person might come up stage and they don't know who the person is. I mean, you guys should see what I'm talking about. So I'm looking at the awards now. At the end of this decade, well, I have already lost faith in it. But it's going to be interesting to see, does the public still have faith in the Grammys at the end of this decade? Have we been able to figure out our own awards, a credible one? In fact, maybe we'll talk about this in other episodes. I think at this point, I think it's not happening. I think this industry is never going to have anyone anytime soon that is credible enough, because I think the jury is already tainted. Because who are you choosing to pick this artist? Is it in this climate where everyone is a secret fan, everyone is a secret stan of one artist or the other? No one is able to. How many? You need enough people. I'm not saying maybe one person does not. There are a few people, but you need enough people to vote in these categories. Right? And I'm thinking, if you even want to have a credible award show, if you're not even having a plan right now, in fact, if you're going to have a credible award, no credible award show should start earlier than 2030, because you need to spend between now and 2030 figuring it out. One, like doing your research, earning the trust of the industry. What else are you going to be doing as an award show outside of doing your awards that is going to bring in money? How are you going to convince investors that this is the real deal? What is your plan for 10 years, for 5 years? If you're coming in at 2030, you need to know where you're going to be at 2040 as an award show. You need to know where you're going to be at 2035 as an award show. For you to be credible, for us to begin to create the kind of award show that would last beyond us that are alive today, and have award shows like the Grammys or the Brit Awards that can last for years, or hopefully even half a century from now. You need to create deep roots, meaning you need to spend enough time planning and making sure that the roots are strong enough to survive you, the person planning and thinking about this industry. I'm thinking about this award. So for me, no award is going to be credible if you're not spending at least 5 years to figure the shit out of what the goal, the mission, the vision is. The logistics of this, of whatever award plaque is going to be. What are we going to be doing as a charity? Like, you need to figure things out. Even if you don't figure everything out, there needs to be a plan on ground of what that would look like. You get what I mean? There needs to be a plan on ground of, this is what we're going to do in year 5, year 10, year 15, year 20 to expand on this award show beyond what it is today. I don't need you to give 20 awards right now. If you can give out 5 or 6 or 10 right now, fine. But you need to have a plan of how to expand. That's what I'm talking about. If your root is not grounded enough, you who is planning the award or sponsoring the award today, when you're not there, can the award show stand by itself? Can somebody else come in and and ride on the vision and the mission that has been put on ground. So it's going to be interesting decades of an interesting decade of what recognizing excellence would look like in this industry. It's going to be interesting, and it's important. I cannot say it enough. It's important. If you're listening to these things I'm saying, why do you need these plans? Then we're not ready. If there's any part of anyone's mind thinking you want to have an award show and you're not thinking of all of these plans, then you're not ready. The people who created the Grammys are not the ones in charge of it today. They've had different iterations of people. The people who started the Brits are not still the ones in charge running things today. If you're not thinking of how to hand it over and it's surviving, if that is not your plan, then we're not serious. We need to be building for the long term. For the generations that are not yet born, we need to be figuring shit out for them right now. So hopefully we're going to be creating at a time it's going to be a new generation coming in with a credible, who do not know a world where there wasn't a credible award show, a recognizable and honest award show in Nigeria. That has to be what our plan is. All the people that I was talking about this, for like 2-3 years now, that have been saying, oh, the big artists are not involved. These big artists are gonna they're phasing out this next decade. What's gonna be your excuse then? Are you gonna be waiting for Burna Boy to show up, or for Whiskey to show up before you to start planning and figuring things out? That's kind of like where my mind is, guys. I'm thinking of this next decade. This is a defining decade for Afrobeats. For Nigerian music industry, this is a defining decade. We've run out of time. There were a couple of things I still wanted to touch, but maybe other episodes. But as always, let me know if there's something I think you've missed. If I was able to light up a bulb in your head, in your mind, and you want to share with me, as always, the door, man, my DMs are open. It's Tiae Sound, Tiae Sound on X, on Twitter. No Stand Pod as well. No Stand POD Pod on Twitter as well. Please let me know. Share with me. I think we need to maybe collaborate more. We need to share more information. I'm thinking about the next generation so bad. I honestly, in my mind, what drives me is this new gen alpha should not come in and we haven't created a more solid foundation for them. The DSPs are not out. We didn't create the DSPs. We didn't create it. So it's not as if the DSPs that exist today, we are the ones that set a place for. We Nigerians, we didn't do anything for them. We didn't do that for them. So if we need to start inspiring people, man, I just don't want to keep talking. But well, you guys know where my heart is, man. As always, please share with me. Let me know what you think. I'm always open to feedback. If you have any pushback for me, I'm always open to having conversations with you guys. So please keep the channel is open. Let's keep having these conversations, and we can make this industry better. We can make we can create a more conducive atmosphere for artists to thrive, for creatives to thrive in whatever music, entertainment, whatever form they come in, they can all thrive, basically, is what I'm thinking right now. And that rounds it up. The very first episode of 2025, way longer than I actually thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be brief, but when I start pouring this thing, it's stuff that I'm really, really passionate about. When I start pouring it out, sometimes it's just like a waterfall that's overflowing. But I hope I didn't bore you. I hope you guys really enjoyed. The show. As always, new episodes every single Monday. New episodes every Monday. I hope you had a really incredible time as well. I wish you guys an incredible year, and I wish you even a better decade, as well. We're all getting older, so please, We're all getting older, so please take care of yourself, okay? Try and eat as well as you can. Try and get some good sleep. Try and exercise. Do all those, fun stuff. And please don't hold it against yourself if you're not able to meet some of the goals you've set. Take every day one step at a time, man. That's honestly what I'm doing. I'm not doing any of the resolution things. I'm just taking it one step at a time, taking the opportunities that come, in front of me, and grab them. The ones I'm able to grab. I know if you do pass myself, Baba. I know we do pass myself. All right. So I wish you guys an incredible week. As always, please don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. I remain my humble self, Tiae. Until next week, stay blessed.